Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome aboard to WOR. This is the Xbox Tier 2 division. Welcome aboard to what is going to be a very interesting Round 8 event here in Tier 2. This is Monza. Welcome to the Temple of Speed.
Yep, good evening everyone. It's good to be here tonight, and I am absolutely looking forward to this one. At the Temple of Speed, as you rightfully mentioned, Jota, and absolutely should be a cracker of a race tonight.
The person that you're just hearing in the background there, Cal G, it is Jota alongside him in this particular event. Now here in this scenario, Cal, welcome back to Tier 2 by the way. It's a pleasure to have you alongside once again. So we're going to be heading through into what is a very, very close, well, it's going to be inevitably a very close qualifying if the tables have got anything to go by.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's rightfully that you've mentioned the tables there. I've got them right in front of me at the moment, and a pretty interesting last two rounds. Unfortunately, I missed them, so it's good to be back, and I've came back to a pretty different championship. We've got Ferry Stonks now leading the way up front with 80 points. Then we've got PSR Levi, who's been very impressive in both Tier 1 and Tier 2 recently. He's in 72 points, also joined by Adam Dude, who's also on 72 points. We also got a new race winner last week in the name of Rev Caterpillar, who on a pretty chaotic Canada race, by what I was hearing, he kept it clean and got himself a nice little 25 points. So yeah, it's been a pretty drastic change in the last few weeks in terms of the championship, and as we now approach the second half of the season, it's definitely wide open and still definitely all to play for.
Absolutely, definitely all to play for, and that one, Rev Caterpillar obviously taking the victory at the Grand Prix in Canada last week. As you rightfully point out, it was a very, very messy race last week in Canada, unfortunately. A bunch of people getting penalties left, right and centre, as you would expect, unfortunately, from the Circuit Shield Villeneuve. One of those drivers actually currently on the lap, Shazoo Venom, is going to be under, I think, the Hawkeye of the stewards after getting 27 seconds worth of penalties at the Canadian Grand Prix. And I'm sure Shazoo will be saying, look, you're a better driver than that, and I think he knows that himself. Though the Canadian Grand Prix usually brings up a few challenges. 27 seconds is a little bit excessive as Piccolo sets the initial lap time, 1:19.589.
Yep, and they will, thankfully, the Haas driver will be pretty happy that it'll be less likely to get penalties round here. It's a bit easier to keep it on the track. And yeah, so not a Haas driver, it's a Mercedes driver, sorry, he's changed. I thought he used to be the Haas. But yeah, he'll be looking for a bit of a cleaner race. Monza a bit easier on the penalties, especially compared to Canada, so yeah, he'll be looking for a cleaner session. Shazoo Venom now just coming around the final corner, currently no lap time to his name, a 19.3 is the time to beat at the top of the times, and that is by ETA Jack. So a nice little lap in there from the Alpine. What can this Mercedes do as he comes across the line, and it's a 1 minute 19.6, and that's only good enough for P6 at the moment.
Yeah, it certainly is, as he heads now down into turn 1. He'll be with the 1:19.6, but a couple of 3 drivers now with that 1:19.6. Gives us an opportunity as well to say a big welcome aboard as well to ET8. Of course, ET8 absorbing what was then the Velox team, as ET8 now on board with the likes of Quantum and Axel out on the field as well. Of course, Jack currently in second place. So very going to be very interesting to see how their team develops, of course, after the absorption of the what was actually a slowly but surely growing Velox team. So a good opportunity for ET8 to come in and sweep that one. Speaking of teams with, should we say, some certain promenade within the esports community, here's PSR, and it's Levi in the Ferrari. Of course, this will be, if I'm right in saying, the last week we will be seeing the special Ferrari livery, because of course we'll be switching over to the special McLaren livery from the next race, I believe, as we just see him come through now into Parabolica, as the Ferrari wants to keep it nice and tidy if he can. And he's absolutely mugged me off as he comes into the pits. Can you believe that one? We'll keep an eye out and see who else is out there on the field. You know what? It's not long, hasn't it? You've only been gone a couple of weeks, and it's only taken, about 5-6 minutes, and I've been completely knocked off by a driver that looked like it was going to be on a lap. Nonetheless, though, a bunch of other drivers all coming in now to set, were to set their preliminary lap times. But again, we are at another circuit where it does seem to be that track extensions can be relative issues. Usually the hot spots of that will be heading into Ascari and probably through Parabolica as well.
Yeah, certainly. So, I just want to point out the St George driver of Clone Troop. It's his debut in Tier 2. He was promoted from Tier 4 I could be wrong, but he didn't have a great time in Tier 4. I think the pace was really good. There's just consistency issues there. But it was clear Clone Troop he wasn't meant for that tier. And then in Tier 2 he got the promotion, rightfully so, and he's definitely shown that he is not here to mess about. On P3 already, a 19.3 to the Ferrari driver's name. And yeah, I'm excited to see what he can provide to us tonight.
Yeah, certainly looking forward to seeing what Clone Troop has got actually under his belt. He had some serious pace down in Tier 4. So with his promotion up to Tier 2 and immediately putting himself into the top 3, he's immediately showing that he is going to be someone to really keep an eye out on. And speaking of which, actually, his FRA Cesar as he now heads into turn 1. A couple of drivers in front there are on outlap, so we want to try and get out of the way of this fast-running Aston Martin. He now just heads through turn 1, and he'll want to keep it nice and tidy if he can as he heads through Curva Grande. And this is going to be another one of these corners I think that we're going to be expecting as a little bit of a hotspot tonight. The De La Rosière chicane, absolutely going to be the one to watch. Of course, this is the infamous corner where a lot of drivers were almost using the glitch over, if you remember down in the PC world, dropping it to 60 frames per second will allow you to take that sausage curb no problem at all, but of course you're locked to 120 in the Xbox world, so as a result these drivers have got to keep it very, very steady over that sausage curb because they are lethal around here.
Yeah, absolutely, and Joe, it's not just that as well. You have everywhere else on this track, just like it sees at the moment. It's a prime example of Scarlet chicane as well. It can be so awkward and it can just be so tough for these cars to keep it on the track and make sure it doesn't get unsettled. Lucky for Caesar so far, it's been done pretty nicely. FRA Kai now set a 19.1. He goes top of the standings, but we'll just stick on board with FRA Caesar at the moment, coming through the parabolic in the final corner. It's been a pretty neat lap from the Aston Martin so far, and he's a 19.6 to get into the top 10. It's a 19.7. It's P12 for the Aston Martin.
Yeah, another bunch of drivers all within that 19.6 range. Cesar just leaving it with a 19.7. Bunch of other drivers all on laps themselves. Here comes Chelsea in the 17th place at the moment in the Alfa Romeo as the driver, I've been mugged off again, can you believe it? And in that scenario we'll have to skip back over, I think probably, it looks like to me a combination of Levi and Rev Caterpillar. They are both on hot laps at the moment, one in front of the other. And Rev Caterpillar, obviously on the back of what was a very tumultuous Canadian Grand Prix victory. So he'll be happy with that victory, but the question is can he replicate the performance that he had at Canada in Italy?
It would be very hard, wouldn't it? The Rev Caterpillar fan club would be hoping that he can, but it was a deserved win, I think, in the end. A little bit of bad luck this season. I mean, remember that pretty bizarre pole he got in Spa with the wet weather, and he went in the dries and got the pole, and I think it all went a bit wrong in the race. But yeah, it was good to see him getting that one in Canada. And he's in a good lap so far as well. I was pretty surprised to see him so close to Levi in front of him, and understand the slipstream and things like that. But maybe I didn't think it was that big of a deal in this game. I didn't think slipstream was that much of an advantage, and maybe it's not. Maybe it was just an accident from Rev Caterpillar. But do you know what? It's been a pretty good lap so far, and definitely something to keep an eye on now as he's come into the final sector.
Yeah, just keep an eye on Levi as he now heads, after finishing through Ascari, now obviously heading through to Parabolica. Want to keep it nice and tidy here. Clone Troop on his debut in Tier 2 immediately snags pole with 8 and a bit minutes to go here. So plenty of time and opportunity, but the Tier 4 promotion candidate, and I've been mugged off again by Levi, but Rev Caterpillar's not going to do that for me as he goes P8 with a 19.4. So that another driver within that close proximity of others. We've got 3 drivers in 19.4, 3 drivers 19.6s, 2 drivers 19.7s. Again, a real testament to the close proximity of the Tier 2 drivers here tonight. Clone Troop, though, on his debut in Tier 2 from Tier 4, immediately setting his sights on trying to, should we say, dominate the second tier of WOR.
Yeah, absolutely. Vicerakos now coming across the line. It's an 18.9 for the Mercedes driver. He has put Clone Troop back in his place a little bit there. The Mercedes takes provisional pole and a great lap time to do it as well.
Yeah, keeping an eye out as well on ESV Bobbers as well, that in 19th place, the McLaren driver and the host of this lobby. Will head to Ascari as he just tries to get his tyres all nice and warm up. He's actually got a little bit of trouble behind him as well in the Ferrari. I believe that is of Clone Troopers on a slow lap now. The question is how is Bobbitt's going to do? He's had a bit of an up and down season. He's not been that consistent as the number 8 McLaren, but some days he'll be in there and scooping around in the top 5, and then some days you may see him towards the bottom. We'll see what Monza does for him. Of course, a low downforce setup is to be expected here, and I'm sure there'll be a number of drivers who will decide to use nil-nil wings. And I think Bobbitt's looking at that. It looks like to be one of them as he now heads into turn 1. Taking a lot of curb through turn 2 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry to interrupt there. I'm just going to say that ESV Bob sitting fifth in the standings, and it was a good point to make that he is always kind of sniffing in and around, isn't he? And was just looking last two races, failing to score any points. So yeah, it's been a bit of a rough patch, as you rightfully mentioned. So he would be looking to rectify there, but an invalidated lap, and yeah, not a great start for him so far. And it just leads me on to my next point about it's not going to be an easy one tonight for him on the controller, and it's historically pretty tough around here as well. Jam Pancakes is another one on the controller. These two guys, they're going to be up against it tonight. This is not a track that favours the controller, and yeah, they really need to go on it tonight if they want any sort of good result for them.
Just keeping an eye on Chelsea fan as well as he head through the De La Roggia chicane. He absolutely, well, it was a monumental effort, to be honest with you, to save their car from going into the wall. A big tank slapper that was very well caught after getting a bucket of opposite lock sent him into an oversteering session. Chelsea fan is going to be absolutely fine as he tries to get out of the way. Hopefully the McLaren's not going to get through, but actually very close indeed actually with Roberts. Not expecting, I'll be perfectly candid, not expecting a massive lap here from Chelsea because he definitely lost at least a second on the rest of the field here, so he might be down into the 120s here unless he had an absolute blistering second and third sector. Chelsea does come across the line. It is a 1 minute 20.9. He lost about a second alone in that tank slapper they had at De La Roggia, so he's got plenty of opportunities now and a little bit of time, just over 5.5 minutes to go in this session to have a proper run at this one here, and he is having another run at it here by the looks of things, is the Alfa Romeo.
Yep, Chelsea in the name, Bournemouth in the position, unfortunately, for Chelsea fan at the moment. Just looking on board with PSR Levi down in P20 at the moment. Definitely a very quick driver, and he'll be looking to rectify this current position down in P20. We all know he's much better than that, just coming through the back straight now, just eyeing up the infamous Ascari chicane now. It's a lot of work to do in this lap, and a lot of work to do in this session. A 52.7 is in the middle, take this flip, but a little bit deep into Ascari there. I definitely can make things a little bit awkward there. And talking about awkward, we've got two cabs in front of them as well. Two lap cabs are going to try and have to get past, try and navigate now before the final corner of Parabolic, and a Haas getting out the way nicely, and they can now eye out this final corner. It's fifth gear for the Ferrari, up to sixth on the power rail, and he's going out wide, maybe it's a bit too wide there. The car's struggling to handle it, and I think, is he going to mug me off here? No, he's not. He's going straight across the line now. It's a 1 minute 19.3, and that's P6 for the Ferrari.
I wouldn't have trusted him personally, but there he goes across the line to eventually get a lap time in. He mugged me off twice early on, but he's not going to do it when Carl's commentating, so envy is the key word in that particular conversation. I'm just joking, of course. We'll keep an eye on Robertson as well. Oh, I've just been mugged off immediately. Roberts come straight into the pits. You know what? I give up. I'm not just Cal. I'll just let you run the show because clearly nobody wants to do anything for me whilst I'm currently live on them at the moment. It's absolutely disastrous, to put it bluntly. We'll keep it out of Spinella. Spinella, do something for me. Here comes the Alpha Tauri as he now heads through into the Rettifilio chicane. Of course, now turn 1 into turn 2, trying to avoid the curbs as much as you can. That's something Boberts didn't do. A little snap of oversteer, but well caught actually from the Alpha Tauri, as he'll keep it nice and tidy through Curva Grande. Keep it as close as you can to the side without touching the grass, and obviously spit it out a little bit wide, and then you've come into the De La Roggia, and a lot of people tend to cut that corner very nicely, and Spinella does exactly that. It all depends on how you do the ride high, and looking at this, it doesn't look like to me he's going to be on a lap. I don't think I'm going to get mugged off on this occasion. Them red lights at the back blinking suggest to me he is not on a lap. He's kept the power down to a minimum, so Spinella is not going to be on a lap, I think, on this particular occasion. So we'll look elsewhere, and we'll take a look at Rev Caterpillar, who goes into the top 4 with that 1 minute 19.222, and that puts him in close proximity towards that front row, you know, and I think maybe the power of that victory at Canada might be powering him towards a potential fight for pole, which currently is held by the Hungarian hero himself, ESR Akos.
Yeah, Rev Caterpillar dropped really impressive at the moment, and yeah, I think maybe that win last week is all it needed. It's a bit more motivation, a bit more confidence to play the game, and I think you can sometimes see that in drivers. Just a good result like that can just spur them on a little bit more to go and do well, practice more and put a bit more effort in. And yeah, prime example from Rev Caterpillar so far, P4 on a dry session. It's not something we would normally see from him, so yeah, he's done a great job at the moment, and yeah, I'll be interested to see with 3 minutes to go, can he get another lap in? I'm not too sure. I think this could be the end of his session. Just 3 minutes left to go. Now the majority of the drivers coming out for their final runs. So
biggest shock so far has got to be conversation around Jam Pancakes and Adam Dude at the moment. Well down the field in 15th and 17th respectively, down in the mid to late 119s. So there's definitely a lot more pace available, certainly in the Alpha Tauri and the Alfa Romeo, because these guys has shown a lot more pace, not just within WOR, I think in Legacy as well as TPS as well, actually, especially in the name of Jam Pancakes. They've definitely got a lot more pace available at their disposal, so we'll keep an eye out and see how they improve. Quantum comes across the line to start his lap in the McLaren for the newly refurbished ET8 team, as looks like that's a Ferrari of Clone Troop himself actually leaving the pit lane now, and that will be and pardon me, that was Levi actually, but Clone Troop just heading out of the De La Roggia chicane into the Lesmos. Really good start here from the tier 4 promotion driver, heading up to tier 2, immediately getting into the low 19s, probably on the brink of the 118s. Can he get pole though on his debut in what is the, well, it's best described as one of the biggest best performances from a promotion candidate immediately out of the blocks?
Yeah, certainly. They've Caterpillar unfortunately retired from the session, and yeah, interesting point about Clone Trip there. I would be intrigued. I wouldn't be surprised if he went and got pole position. I think that was one of his strong points he's always had, and I think what's been maybe let them down, especially what I've seen in tier 4, is probably the racecraft, a lot of crash and a lot of spins, but maybe a bit of a higher tier, a bit more importance, a bit more care, and everything he did. I think he could be a real threat tonight. He's about to start his final lap now, just about under 2 minutes left in the clock, and still a lot to play for now.
Just keeping an eye out here on VSR Akos as he just heads through the first Rettifilio chicane through Curva Grande into the De La Roggia, and of course then into the Lesmos following on from De La Roggia. Now in that situation, Akos at the moment having a relatively good first sector, managing to get himself 36 thousandths faster than his fastest lap, which is of course the pole lap, but he didn't have the fastest first sector. Clone Troop has got the fastest first sector, and he hasn't actually beaten that fastest first sector even with that slight improvement, so it's all about what he can do down here in the second sector. Does he have enough sort of leanway on the wings here to be able to just power down the straight? According to this, he does. He's up a 10th in the second sector, so it looks like we're going to be getting an improvement maybe into the 118.70, which would be a cracking lap indeed, but it's all about what's going to happen for the likes of Kai, Clone Troop, and of course maybe don't even discredit the likes of ET8 Jack, as Noctis comes into third place. He's now into the 1 minute 19 zeros. This is the checkered flag now being waved. So Akos, last attempt here as he'll come across the line. He does improve, and he does improve to a 118.8. So he's in the end, he's just a little bit down, under a 10th faster than his previous lap time. Clone Troop, he is not going to improve. He's 2.5 tenths down in the second sector alone, and I think that is going to be his qualifying over. Kai goes onto the front row in the Haas with a 118.9. Jam Pancakes has been disqualified for driving the wrong way, which I suspect is probably a spin somewhere, and the game has immediately disqualified him, which is going to be bitterly disappointing stuff for the St. George Esports driver. He's not going to be happy about that one. Venom can't improve, and he goes into the 119.2s with a P6. Stonks 119.2. Jack 119.3. He's in the pits and he's not improving. ETA Axel is improving. Second sector looking fairly sharp, a little bit under a 10th faster. Excuse me, as he is trying potentially to get into the top 10. But in comes another bunch of drivers, including the likes of Noctis up in P4 at the moment, wants to try and improve, but I think that will probably be his lap over and done with, as there he is there. Spinning McLaren gets out of the way. Oh, he's invalidated on the final corner at Parabolica, did Axel, and he was looking fairly sharp there to improve and maybe get into the top 10, but in the end he stays down in P14. So it's all about what Bobberts can do, and he's not going to be improving either. So we have our grid, and the immediate suggestions straight out of the blocks. The Hungarian hero flying high already. He's on pole.
Yeah, great lap there from VSR Akos, an 18.8. What a great lap that is, and you just want to put that into perspective for people. Last night's pole was an 18.6 from Otis Lawrence, and we know how good that is. To be only 2 tenths off and be in tier 2, it just shows you how high the standard is. You've also got FNA Kai in the 18s, Clone Troop and Noctix, all on Caesar, all setting great lap times as well. The standard round here tonight is very, very high.
Very, very high indeed. So there it is then. So we're going to have a very, very interesting race ahead of us. Now, Xbox Tier 2 has always shown that we were going to have a really intense sort of championship between these drivers. It was always going to be ultimately incredibly close, and the top 14 are separated by just under 0.6 of a second. The entire grid separated by around 7.5 tenths, so 3/4 of a second. Of course, Chelsea Van Bobbers did not set representative lap times, and of course Jam Pancakes was disqualified from that session. So in the end, Akos leading the way on pole, with Kai meeting him in the 1 minute 18s, then the 19s for Clone Troop on his debut. P3 will be happy with that one to get a second row spot alongside Noctis with Caesar. Rev Caterpillar in 6th, with Venom in 7th, looking not to replicate what happened in Canada and getting 27 seconds worth of penalties. Stonks in 8th, Jack in 9th, Quantum in 10th, with Levi Spinella, typical Axel, Chasta Piccolo, Adam Dude, and Chelsea and Bobbers, with of course Jam Pancakes at the back. Big shocker for Adam Dude, of course, down the pack. He's in P3 in the championship, isn't he? With 72 points joint with PSR Levi, but all the way down at the back of the grid, he's got one hell of a challenge on ahead of him here in Monza.
Yeah, he certainly does. And when you think about how tricky Monza can be, you've got things like the DRS. DRS trains are a huge impact to how a race can play out around here. So, yeah, for a man that's third in the standings and definitely eyeing up a championship this year, to be that far down in qualifying, it is certainly below par for his standards.
So, we take a minute now to just take a breather. Appreciate the sort of track and what we've got ahead of us here, because we've got definitely an absolutely superb race ahead of us in this tier 2 session. Now we are expecting strategy wise medium, hard, medium as the typical strategy you would expect. However, the difference here between the medium hard and the hard medium is not too dissimilar, and though you'd argue the hard medium is probably the fastest strategy, you would not expect people, you would not blame people for starting on the medium tyre, because they might be able to pull enough of a gap that the DRS won't become a factor, because we are expecting a few DRS trains to form here tonight. So it's all about what people are going to do as regards to strategy, and a bunch of hard tyres already going on in the session. So we'll take a look at what's happening in the tables at the moment, Cal. So it's Stonks leading the way, as you discussed earlier, 80 points. Then you've got Levi, Adam Dude, and Akos, 72, 72, and 60 respectively. Opportunity knocks here for the likes of Akos here, because he's on pole position, in 4th place in the championship at the moment. Adam Dude is well down the field. Stonks himself is obviously in a bit of a predicament when it comes to this, because he's down in 8th, and when you're talking sort of Retifilio, you don't want to be in the middle of the pack going into Retifilio. He is in a little bit of danger in 8th.
Yeah, he is. I think anyone that's maybe up that top 4 or 5 tonight is in a bit of danger. It's just kind of the nature of Monza and the nature of how it is. So yeah, he has to be careful and think, as well now he's got that championship lead, do you think he could possibly change the way he's driving now? Is he a bit more cautious now? Is he a bit more conservative, knowing that there is a championship there to play for? So yeah, he's definitely going to be an interesting one to look out for. Akos as well, he's got a great position tonight, sitting on pole position, 4th in the standings, and I'm surprised he's not higher up. I was just looking at his results this year, and he's been so consistent, and that has been the key to his season. His highest finish has only been 3rd. However, he's only failed to score points in 1 race this season, which is pretty impressive compared to some of the others around him. So consistency has really been key for Akos tonight, and now on top of that with a pole position, I think he could be a real threat tonight in that Mercedes.
Okay, we've got a countdown now forming for the last 30 seconds. Immediate indications to suggest surely Akos is one of the favourites here tonight. 2 of his championship rivals are in the midfield. They're going to struggle going through Retifilio, maybe even to the Della Roggia chicane, and of course Adam Dude, the other championship rival, in 3rd place just above him, all the way down in P17. This is going to be an interesting race. You say Akos very quickly. Akos is going to be the favourite, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right there, that is going to be the call here. Let's see what happens as those drivers are on the grid, as they are going to be getting themselves ready for what is going to be a very interesting Grand Prix ahead of us. It's 2, it's 3, it's 4, and it's 5 lights. It's 5 lights, and they are a... Go, the drivers, here they are. It's a really good start on that inside line from Akos, and he's trying to hold on from the immediate attack here from the Haas of Kai. Clone Troop also trying to get in the mix as well. Late braking maneuver, potentially opportunity knocks for the Red Bull, but caught behind by the Haas, as we've got a bunch of drivers all keeping it nice and tidy and looking fairly sharp at the moment, actually, between all of those towards the back. We have got a few drivers all in and around the field at the moment, as Jam Pancakes are currently battling at the moment with Chasta and Bobbers down in P18, 19 and 20 respectively. 3 positions gained already for Venom up to 4th. Noctis down 1, Stonks up 2, and then Rev Caterpillar not having the best start, down 1, and then Caesar also down 3, as we've got a bunch of drivers all battling. Axel and Levi for ET8 and PSR battling, but ET8 also losing another driver as well. Adam Dude still battling with Spinella. He's now down another position to 15th place. So far, so good for all the drivers, kept it clean and tidy.
Yeah, just looking there, Clone Troop losing a position to Shizou Venom, they could be under threat from losing another one to the Red Bull, and Noctis coming into it, scary they go. Clone Troop forced to use a bit of VRS here and goes down into, stays into P4 I should say. The Clone Troop caught that one a little bit, they're super opportunistic from Venom, and a great start from him. He got a great run out of the chicane of turn 5 and 6 and going into LSM1, just sends it up the inside the Clone Troop and gets P3 from that as well. So yeah, great start from the Mercedes there, and Clone Troop caught napping a little bit.
Caught napping a little bit. Venom absolutely flying high at the moment, but do remember he's on a hard tyre as well in that situation. He's actually managed to switch those tyres on a lot quicker than everyone else at the moment, and he's already starting to close down the gap to Kai here. Clone Troop already trying to pull a gap here, but of course he's under some pressure, as you rightfully point out, Gal, from Noctis, and Noctis was looking for the gap, but the Ferrari immediately cut it off as he gets into a little half spin, because Stonks, the championship leader, collides into him ever so slightly. Doesn't look like any damage on that particular occasion, but he needs to try and avoid that happening again, because he could be in some serious trouble. Towards midfield, Levi and Jack currently battling hard at the moment, and in fact Piccolo also getting into the mix for Shizou, and he will always keep it nice and tidy. Adam Dude up another position to 13th place as he tries to continue on his championship charge, and he's coming up from 17th to 13th at the moment. Good effort indeed from the Alpha Tauri.
Yeah, Adam Dude is a good start, and he needs that good start. The only man on medium tyres. We've seen him do it in Miami before this, earlier on this season, doing that softer then harder tyre, and it's exactly what he's doing here tonight. But he has to make the most of these medium tyres, and he has done that so far. So yeah, good stuff there from Adam Dude, but he has to keep that up.
As the Rev Caterpillar fan club already begins to enter into the chat, Crispy, the man, the myth, the legend that is Crispy in there, saying Rev, 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 as he is up into P7, of course, down one position though from his starting position of P6. So far though, so good for all of the drivers though, keeping it nice and tidy, though they've lost positions, no one out of the race immediately. I was expecting a few little nudges and clips maybe going through Retifilio or De La Rogier, but to be fair, the tier 2 drivers keeping it nice and tidy as the DRS has just been enabled.
Yeah, DRS enabled now. You know what that means. DRS trains galore. Referee Stonks just come in turn 1 and 2 now. All over the back of that Red Bull. He made a bit of contact last lap. He didn't do it this lap. He's learned his lesson. But now, big gap forming, starting to form from DRS, from Stonks and Red Caterpillar. Red Caterpillar needs to get a bit of a movement now, making sure he's not going to lose DRS to the guys in front, because that could be huge for the outcome of this race if Red Caterpillar fails to stay within that DRS of FRA Stonks, up in front.
Just keeping an eye on FRA Aston Martin, with Stonks and Cesar obviously both team up at FRA at the moment, and Red Caterpillar is the filling of a sandwich at the moment between the two Aston Martins as he tries to close down the gap on the championship leader. Now the championship leader of course was not really in that battle in the end in Canada, so of course he's going to be wanting to bounce back from that particular situation, as Rev Caterpillar is closing down the gap, but he's getting a bucket load of understeer going through Ascari, so he's obviously not feeling too comfortable at the moment, is the Alpine, as the Cesar will try and continue to close down the gap. And as we've seen just towards the back, Chelsea fan has got into a bit of a half spin, and he's now falling a little bit back now, just over 4 seconds back from Jam Pancakes, and what has been an awful race so far from the other Italian team Alfa Romeo, as Kai goes faster than Akos on that last lap here, potentially putting a little bit of pressure here, as FRA Cesar is looking to try and make the move on Rev Caterpillar, as he will go down that outside line, and is entitled to the space potentially, as the Alpine is trying to get close, and they're still side by side, a little wiggle because of a little collision and bang of wheels, as Rev Caterpillar is trying to hold on, but Quantum trying to get in the mix around the outside into the inside, if you will, of the Curva Grande, and to me it looks very clear that this is going to keep battling hard here, as Cesar's trying to get around the outside, but he's not going to have the space surely, as Rev Caterpillar still going side by side, and there is a collision and into the gravel. The Rev Caterpillar relegated down to 10th to make that 11th place in that little battle, as they'll now go through the Lesmos, and they'll continue to battle hard with Levi, trying to make some inroads now on ETA Jack, the other Alpine, because it's a half spin, and that is an awful crash going into that corner there, and he resets to track, which is not exactly the key thing to do there, but that is an awful spin from ETA Jack. Was flying high, got into a half spin, tank slapper, and into the wall.
Yeah, tough stuff there. It's hard racing all round, and unfortunate stuff there for ETA Jack and the end, but unfortunately for Red Caterpillar as well, whereas he fell himself down to a P9. That was the only P6 he was up to there, so to find himself back down to P9, it's not ideal with stuff that at all.
And unfortunately as well, it is even worse for Paradox Sim Racing's Levi, because he ended up colliding and T-boning ETA Jack, and he has no front wing at all, so into the pit lane for an early pit stop. He would have been wishing he started on the medium tyre. Now He's going to have to switch over to the medium tyre and potentially consider a 2-stop with a front wing change. Levi is in a little bit of trouble and he's going to need a safety car here. We'll keep an eye out on his performance here as Noctis has started his push now, and the lovely fish helmet wearing Noctis and the RP1 driver will be wanting to keep a very firm eye on this Ferrari, and that's a big rear lockup, and I'm not sure if he got into another collision with FRA Stonks or if that was just a huge rear lockup, but if it was, they really need to consider swapping a little bit on the brake bias, because that was very well caught, and he was lucky not to end up mounting the curb and bottoming out over the sausage.
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking as well at the moment, Clone-Trip, he's just not really got the pace, has he? Compared to this top three, just under a tenth of a second is a gap. He's just within that DRS range, but he's got a Red Bull RP1 Noctis absolutely hounding him at the moment, and I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen a position change there, because Clone-Trip, it just doesn't look to be on it compared to these three. He's using a lot of that ERS as well, only 42% to his name, and yeah, the Ferrari could be falling under some real pressure now from Noctis behind.
Good stuff so far, though, from Clone Troop to get himself back into the DRS territory of Venom. But obviously, as you rightfully point out, he's been using a lot of ERS, though he's been managing it relatively okay compared to some other people out on the field at the moment. Levi comes out, by the way, 23.7 seconds back on Chelsea fan now. Jack stays out. Despite the damage. I'm not sure if it was just him that got the damage. There was a bit of a lock-up from Noctis, ends up dropping the revs so low that he could have considered an anti-stall potentially arriving on that engine. Either way, down to P5 at the moment for Noctis as Clone Troop, as he tries to chase down Clone Troop, but he's had actually a very good couple of sectors so far, has the Ferrari, as he now tries to close down his trip now on Venom and keeping it nice and tidy through De La Rogier, as we do have a swap potentially in positions, because Akos making a very slight mistake going through De La Rogier is now putting a lot of pressure on him as they go through Lesmo 1 into Lesmo 2, and Akos just managing to hold on, but because of that mistake it's really started to close down that gap now, and now Venom is looking very tasty. He wants to look for it here as the Haas of Kai is going to make the move going into Ascari, and the Haas is now leading the way here as Akos is now going to have to cope with being the second place driver, and that is a completely different place, of course, because despite the new generation of cars, it is going to have some effect with understeer as a result of the toe that, of course, you're going to give the driver behind. And there's another mistake there, and again, I did say Akos is going to have to get used to it, and he's struggling already here, and now Venom now beginning to close down the gap. DRS available for both Mercedes, but I have a feeling with that mistake Akos is not going to get close enough to Kai here, and actually it could be Clone Trooper may look for it, and he tries to get into the wings here. Here comes Roleplay 1's Noctis, gets into a slight collision, and now they've got an awful little bit of desync happening there between the Aston Martin and the Red Bull, and I do hope that this doesn't affect your viewing, guys, and apologies that you have to witness that. I'm sure we'll have to censor that later down the line, but as you can see, them two obviously a little bit of a wiggle. I think that from Noctis to apologise potentially.
Yeah, it gets a bit messy, doesn't it, when you're all so close together. I think that can happen. A bit of contact from Noctis onto Clone Troop. Clone Troop is very close to the back of Venom as well, and it just kind of shows you that can all get really backed up really quickly. It could definitely lead to a few incidents here and there. The VSR Akos, a bit of a rough lap last time out, falling down to P2, and as you said, maybe struggling a little bit with that dirty air, but he's managed to get himself together. That ERS is looking very healthy, just at 100% now as he's breaking for Ascari, and I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen him going for another move on that Haas anytime soon. Yeah,
I mean, he could also try and play the long game and stay behind Kai. We'll have to see. Either way, he's going to get closer and closer just on the straight alone here as they'll go now into Parabolica on lap 7 of 27. 19 laps to go as they come across the start-finishing line. Early indications suggested that Akos was going to be the driver to watch here, but as it stood on that particular occasion, he is making a few mistakes, but not a mistake on this occasion. He retakes the lead of this race and now goes in front of Kai before they get anywhere near into the Retifilio chicane.
Yeah, pretty simple move there, and Kai's wise enough to not make any moves for that one. It's Noctis as well. They're getting past Clone Troop into turn 1, and Clone Troop now finding himself under a bit of pressure as well from FRA Stonks, who's hounding the back of this Ferrari and coming through Curva Grande. Could he pull for a move? He pulls out to the inside. Raj, can he do much? Clone Troop, sorry, can he do much to do it? I don't think he can. And Stonks, can he go down the inside? No, he doesn't. And Clone Troop just about hangs on at the moment. It was tough stuff there as well. He's losing the position to Noctis, and Clone Troop, he has to be on his toes now because he doesn't want to lose another one to that Aston Martin as well.
You have to say both the championship leader and Clone Troop having a really tough time of it as regards to the ERS management. Both drivers currently struggling and now below the 20% mark, so their engines are now going to naturally enter into a harvest mode. You'll start to see the red light blink a lot earlier as a result of that one on these straights, which is only going to lose them time. And though they'll have DRS, it's all about if Noctis has been able to look after his DRS. And to be fair, he hasn't, to be fair. He's still above 20%, as Cesar now gets a time penalty. On his record, he'll be the second of two now to get a time penalty as a result of track extension issues, as they now head through into Parabolica for the 9th time now. The 8th time rather, as they now go down the straight and continue on with this Grand Prix event. And as it stands at the moment, Clone Troop is losing a little bit of time to Noctis, and this is what we, let's be candid, expected from the debutant tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam Wood at the moment in P9 on those medium tyres, trying to make the most of them, going round outside at someone. It turns to the inside for turn 2, and he's squeezing that McLaren off a quantum. He probably wouldn't appreciate that one. Rev Caterpillar now, he sends his chance to bite, but a bit of a poor exit there. Might just let him now coming through Cavalgrande. He's got the run, he's using all that ERS if he can. Coming out to turn 3 and 4 now, or 4 and 5 I should say. Can Rev Caterpillar go for a move? He thinks better of it, and has to stay behind the McLaren. There's contact between the two of Piccolo as well. Piccolo's got a bit of messy there, and once again we're seeing this pretty bizarre glitch. But Piccolo, that was a hairy moment there from the two of them, wasn't that?
Very well caught from Rev Caterpillar to get hit that hard from the rear and then managing to snap it back in line. I don't know how he managed to keep that car in there, but I must admit, very, very excellently placed there, as we've still got desync issues here. But unfortunately for Rev Caterpillar, as well as Piccolo actually for that matter, they've not been looking after the ERS either, and they're currently struggling for power down the straights, and I'm expecting Rev Caterpillar might be in a bit of trouble here. He stayed within the second barrier though of Quantum for all of his luck here, as Adam Dude is trying to get into the DRS of Cesar at the moment, but as it stands he's going to be a bit of a sitting duck versus Quantum if he gets anywhere near him, as we just keep an eye out on what's happening ahead of us. And at this rate, Clone Troop has started to find a little bit of time, you know, again the consistency of the driver, isn't it? Like, he's struggling a little bit out there initially in the battles, but then when you find the time, as it gets a rear again, another rear lockup, or potentially FRA Stonks hitting him again. Drivers are really struggling out there with just touching the rear ends.
Oh yeah, talking about rear ends, a big crash down the further end. Rev Caterpillar involved once again. I'm not too sure it's Piccolo who is also one of the victims from that. Again, a little bit messy once again, and yeah, you could see that one coming. It was just brewing a little bit for the last few laps here, and yeah, tough stuff in the end for Piccolo.
Yeah, just keeping an eye on what's happening with Jam Pancakes as well, also trying to get in a battle at the moment with Typical. Really good stuff so far here, as Bobbitts is also trying to close down on Axel for P10 and the final point spot at the moment, and as they are well down the field at the moment from the likes of Quantum, as Adam Dude's still out of the DRS territory of Cesar at the moment, so Stonks is seriously putting some pressure on Clone Troop here, and you'd have to say Clone Troop is getting, I think, a little bit annoyed at the moment with getting hit up the rear ever so slightly, because it's enough that he's now losing enough time to those in front. But his Ascari performance is fantastic. He's one of the fastest through Ascari, and he's managed to find just 3/10 alone in that corner versus Noctis to stay within the DRS territory of the Red Bull, which of course is going to help in the defence versus the championship leader, who really wants to get past Clone Troop, but as it stands at the moment he's struggling, and it's all about how he's going to go now into the Rettifilio chicane. Is he going to be too late on the brakes again? Well, not on this occasion. Keeps it nice and steady and doesn't touch the Ferrari on this particular occasion, lap 11 of 27.
Yeah, it's all calming down slightly, ever so slightly, as Bobbitts having to go wide there, turn 1, gets a 3-second time penalty, and I'm not too sure what that was for. I'm not too sure if there's a bit of contact there. Quite bizarre to see a driver go off at that slight section, so could have been contact inflicted. VSR Chasta going for a move as well, going to pick the P12, it's down the inside now as they come out of Cavalgrande in the Haas driver. It's a pretty simple move up into P12, it's further ahead as well there. Is that Axel going off wide as well there? I think it was. So yeah, pretty bizarre to see all these drivers making quite silly mistakes at the moment.
Yeah, a few silly mistakes here and there. We did say that might be a potential factor within this race. So far, 3 drivers with time penalties as a result of those silly mistakes as it stands at the moment. As we just keep an eye out again on Clone Troop. Now, Clone Troop 9/10 down, but then as soon as he goes through Ascari, he's had a really poor Ascari on that particular occasion, but he still manages to find 3/10 on Noctis that's through Ascari, despite it being poor. So Ascari is what's essentially saving him from potentially getting some horrible challenges maybe from the championship leader, as we see plenty of people in the chat as well saying, I want Rev Caterpillar to win, says Will Gibson. And I think after that mistake, he's down in P16 at the moment. He might be out of the chance of winning it. And speaking of mistake, we've also lost a driver in a spin, and I believe that would be Chelsea fan who spins as Rev Caterpillar comes into the pit lane alongside Spinella. Now he's getting off of the hard tyre, now to change to a set of mediums.
Yep, it's interesting to see pitting this early. Maybe that is damage, or maybe I just had enough of the hard tyre. So strange to see pit lanes, pit activity, I should say, that early on. Looking penalties as well. FRA Caesar with 3 seconds, Quantum with 3, and also Bobbers as well getting 3 seconds. So these guys, the penalties pretty early on, quite unusual to see. You don't normally want to get a penalty around Monza, especially the guys at the top. You would not be looking to see any penalties from the top 5 at least. So yeah, tough day for Caesar, Quantum and Bobbers ahead.
Keeping an eye on FRA Kai at the moment, and if you were just watching then, you may have seen Akos making a few mistakes through the Rodella Rogia chicane as he drops it down to 7th gear, does Kai, in order to not make the overtake on this particular occasion, and a corner cut certainly from Akos, so he is struggling a little bit, and I think the Hungarian hero is certainly under a lot of pressure at the moment from the Haas. And you'd have to say on that one, the Haas is just dealing a little bit more damage to the mentality of the Mercedes driver than in the other direction. And Venom at the moment also just trying to keep within touching distance of the 2 drivers in front, but he's got much less ERS in comparison, because of course he's more so getting challenged from Noctis than he is challenging Kai. Here comes Kai then down the straight, closes the DRS a little bit early by the looks of things as he heads into turn 1, so he's just keeping that pressure on Akos at the moment because he's seeing that he's making a few mistakes.
Yeah, it's a tough position for Kai to be in. I think he knows there's no point in overtaking. I think even if he did get past Akos, if he had the pace, it's still not going to be enough. It's so easy to stay in DRS around here that track position is virtually kind of useless. As long as you're there, you're in that kind of mixer. It doesn't really matter. As long as you keep it on the track, you keep it without any penalties. Kai is not too bold to get overtaken or get the overtake to P1. He's happy to sit behind. They're in the rhythm, they're setting good times, and yeah, I'm not too aggrieved that Kai isn't going for a move, because Joe, he doesn't really need to make it.
Keeping again on Kai, and it's really good performance actually from those towards the front. They're just monitoring their own races, not getting into or not challenging themselves into fights at the moment, and just keeping an eye out on their ERS levels at the moment, and into the 80s for Kai at the moment, where you compare the likes of Venom still below 40%, sorry. So he is struggling a little bit in monitoring that one, as Clone Troop again staying in P5 at the moment and staying within the train, and a very good Ascari keeping him within touching distance of Noctis, and Noctis has had a pretty poor parabolica here, so potentially an opportunity opening up for Clone Troop as one of the first drivers towards the front comes into the pits, and Venom comes in for his first pit stop and probably only stop of this race to move off the hards onto the mediums.
Yeah, interesting stuff there from Venom early on, but not early on compared to some of the drivers at the back. Red Caterpillar, typical, and a few others already came into the pit lane. So a big lap here needed for Venom if he wants to try and get that undercut. It's cold tyres and no DRS compared to the guys he was just up against, but the undercut is powerful around here. We've seen it work in Tier 1 last night to an extent, but not to a great account. But if we can get a good undercut here, Venom could possibly be in the mixer for this top 2.
Keeping an eye on Clone Troop, he's struggling, and these hard tyres are really starting to switch off. 1.3 seconds versus Noctis means he's going to certainly be out of the DRS territory on this occasion. The question is he going to be out of the DRS territory even after he gets another fabulous Ascari out of the way? We'll have to see. Here he heads now down the Curva del Seraglio. Oh, I'll get there in the end. Seraglio, however you pronounce it, down the straight into Ascari. And Clone Troop usually very good around Ascari, keeps it planted very early indeed, but he only found a couple attempts on Noctis, and now this is going to leave him potentially very vulnerable versus the championship leader, or unless of course he decides to make a pit stop. Akos, I expect, is probably going to be coming in if he's going to try and match his teammate on strategy. As we go now down the straight here, and as to be expected, Akos does come in. Noctis also coming in. Clone Troop stays out.
Yeah, surprised to see Clone Troop staying out. He just didn't have the pace that last lap there, losing DRS as well. I was really shocked to see him staying out. So I mean, a bull call there from the Ferrari, but you know, the pace is still there for Clone Troop. A big few laps, you know, could definitely see him gain a few positions, or at least fail to lose them here. But it was just sticking with VSR. Akos is just coming out the pit lane now. Where is he in relation to the others that pitted the lap earlier on? We've got Mercedes Venom coming down the straight now, but is it going to be enough? Let's just see. Venom, he's going to get by the Red Bull, and it's not going to be enough to get Akos. So undercut, you could probably say, probably let him down there.
Undercut worked a treat if he's managed to wanted to make it a 1-2, because he was in P3 by quite a considerable long way versus Noctis. So the undercut has probably worked a treat versus Noctis to make it a Mercedes 1-2. So it's all about whether Akos tries to help his teammate, or is Venom on a bit of a bounce back after what happened at Canada? Is he wanting now to try and challenge for a race victory, to say, I am the better driver, I am a driver better than what was perceived at Canada, is going to be the thing that's going through his head at the moment. And actually, Noctis is still out of DRS territory here. Of course, his tyres are going to be relatively cold, whilst Venom, of course, has now got a fresh set of medium tyres that are nice and warm, but he has been burning through his ERS down to 15%. As they now go through Ascari, Kai finally comes into the pit lane, and he'll be matched with Clone Troop and Says. I expect Axel is probably going to stay out, because you know he's a driver that prefers to go for the very long first stint, and he does stay out indeed. Jam Pancake's also staying out as well, another driver that likes the very long first stint. As they now head through the Parabolica corner, rather, it is still, as it stands, a very much a prospective Mercedes 1-2.
Yeah, as though it's a great strategy call there. FRA Kai, he's got a lot of work to do, but it's not big contact between the two of them. Oh, Kai, he's just moved across. I don't know if he's seen the Mercedes, but Joe, it's a huge error, and it's not going to be good for the Mercedes camp. And Shizu Venom, he will be distraught with that one.
That was, to put it bluntly, poor from FRA Kai, in my opinion. You are the person leaving the pit lane. You have the blue flag to let the faster car through, and he just turned into him. I think he just was caught in a blind spot and he didn't see him, and as a result of that one, no doubt Venom is going to be absolutely livid. He has got, I'm sure, he's got major front wing structural damage. That is now Venom's race completely over, and I'm sure Kai is going to be absolutely livid with himself that actually happened. We'll keep an eye out and see how his performance for the rest of the race is going to be, because that will be on his mind now for the next 11 laps. Race win is certainly out of the equation, surely, for Kai now on that particular occasion, as Noctis is now going to try and close down the gap and try and make him a second place runner, as Axel and Pancake's finally coming in for their one and only pit stop, expecting a set of mediums, but someone, no doubt Jam Pancakes, may try and risk a soft tyre. He is one of those drivers to try it. We'll see what he does anyway as he comes into the pit lane, and it will be a set of medium tyres for the Alfa Romeo.
Yep, they can go for it now. Chelsea picking up a 3-second time penalty, but yeah, messy like that one, wasn't it, last time out? And yeah, shame for Kai, he's having a good race. And yeah, it's just a shame it didn't work out. It's a silly error, and yeah, I think Venom unfortunately is the real loser out of all of that one. Whereas he now, as he came into the pit lane on the softs, then in P19, so yeah, really tough on them. It was a great strategy call on then. I didn't really think it was going to work, and then the undercut really looked promising, but yeah, it's a shame incidents like that can happen, and yeah, unfortunately Venom, he was a bit of a casualty there in the end.
Yeah, I'm sure if he does manage to get on the podium tonight, of course, we will have the podium interviews. I'm pretty sure if Kai does get on the podium tonight, he'll want to try and avoid the question, as if he was maybe Liz Truss being asked a lot of questions about their premiership. Nonetheless, FRA Kai is going to be asked a question, surely, about what happened there. It looked to me as if it was very much a blind spot scenario. Maybe he just did not see him, and maybe with all of the heads-up display and the way the arrow had just obviously got caught out. It is a bitterly disappointing situation nonetheless for the likes of Venom, because he did nothing wrong. He was just trying to get into the race and tried to race Kai, and in that horrible collision, of course, he ends up moving on in the race. And I'm sure that's probably said to the stewarding panel anyway. Lap 18 of 27, 9 laps to go in this race. Akos starting to pull away here, but Kai has been pushing a little bit. The question is, has he been pushing that little bit too hard? The answer to that one, I'd say, is yes. ERS management has been very poor from the Haas, which is only going to leave him extremely vulnerable to an attack from the likes of Noctis, who himself has not been very good with his ERS management. Meanwhile, the championship leader at the moment is still battling at the moment with the Ferrari of Clone Troop on his debut tonight. What a race it has been so far for Clone Troop.
Yeah, Clone Troop just losing out to Stonks there, but Joe, as you said, it's been a good race from Clone Troop so far. And I would like to put out as well, Jam Pancakes from the back of the grid tonight down and up into P10, you could say. That going longer on the strategy definitely worked, gaining him a few positions and obviously benefiting from the chaos with Kai and Venom. So yeah, Jam Pancakes kept his nose clean, no penalties to his name as of yet, and then yeah, on for some pretty decent points as it stands.
Quite indeed. Let's keep an eye out then on the rest of the field towards the midfield at the moment. Of course, it's the inverse strategy for Adam Dude. Starts on the medium, moves to the hards, and so far P8 at the moment as he tries to battle on on certainly the worst tyre of the two. But he is staying within the DRS territory at the moment of Quantum, who has got a time penalty. So if Adam Dude ends up sort of holding on to the DRS of Quantum, he's going to be in a position where he might be battling with Caesar following the penalties as well, which mean he could end up being in P6, which would be a great effort from P17.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said earlier on, it's definitely not an easy track to kind of make your way through a grid. So yeah, to have a drive like that is definitely impressive. Is that ESD Bobbert's getting in the mixer there? Down in P13, he's going with typical F1. He's got the inside for turn 1, and it should be P13 as he comes into turn 1. Typical. He brakes slightly early. He's slightly vulnerable as well. So Levi behind is looking to get stuck in as well. Levi, he's at the tough next thing, isn't he? Down in P2, second in the standings, but 15th in this race. And yeah, it's pretty tough stuff for the Ferrari as it stands.
Really, really good racing, actually. I was just saying, under my breath a little bit there. Got plenty of drivers going 3 or 4 wide through there, and in the end, they just all huddled up round into the Retifilio chicane, no problem at all. So good racing between these drivers, all battling as well for P12 as it stands, and P11 rather, sorry, of course, Chester for VSR just trying to close down the gap as we've lost Kai. And we've lost Kai going through Ascari, and he's put it in the wall, and the safety car has come out of nowhere. It was a bitterly disappointing event, and we did say after that incident with Venom, Kai may have that on his mindset, and it is a mistake that's put it into the wall and has brought the safety car out and flipped this entire race on its head. Akos pits, Stonks stays out, Clone Troop stays out, Noctis, he pits, Caesar stays out. So a bunch of drivers all mixing up the strategy here. I'm not sure switching over to a set of soft tyres is a good call here, because there's a bunch of drivers who've got to make moves on around a track that is really not the easiest to overtake on when you are stuck in a DRS train.
Yeah, it's really threw a spanner into the works now. The race is just petering out a little bit. It looked to me be going a little bit down, but there you go, Effery Kai. It's easily done, unfortunately, and yeah, tough race for him tonight. Obviously that earlier incident with Venom and now crashing out of the race, but yeah, this is really interesting now. VSR Akos coming from the race league, pitting for Soft down in P10. That's a long way off from where he was. He's now got Stonks now in P1, Clone Trip up into P2, and Stonks' teammate Caesar in P3. All these guys elected to stay on the medium tyres, and yeah, with about 7 laps to go, this is going to be very, very interesting now.
I'm not sure it's a good call pitting, you know. I think FRA, Stonks, Clone Troop and Caesar have absolutely nailed it. Staying out, as well as Quantum Axel, Pancakes, Chester, Bobberts and Jack all also staying out. Everyone else electing to pit apart from Levi, who was on the hard tyre, versus everyone else around him on softs. God forbid, that's going to be an awful scenario for the PSR driver. So I just don't believe it. If you're in the lead of this race with 7 laps to go, you stay on a set of medium tyres when everyone's so close behind you. Don't pit. And Akos is now down in P10, and that is going to be one hell of a monumental effort to try and get at least a podium, never mind the race win. We'll have to see. Louis Michigan in the chat. No, Kai is absolutely disappointed. The Kai Club is disappointed to hear that FRA Kai is out of this race, crashing out at Ascari. And at Ascari is, of course, the corpse of the Haas car that collided with Venom earlier on in this race, which I've got no doubt is going to be sent to the stewarding committee regardless of what happened anyway. But I did say it's a mindset thing, isn't it? He got caught out, he made a mistake, and it's been on his head, and he's made a mistake, and he's binned it, and he's out.
Yeah, it is really rough, that, and yeah, he's still on for a good result. I think he'd have got a penalty nonetheless from the earlier incident, but yeah, it's tough to see. And yeah, just going back to that point about the soft tyres, it's going to be huge now for Akos to get a good start. I'm not too sure what the difference is like from soft to medium. I would imagine it's a lot, but I just think to get 9 positions in the kind of time left, I think is really ambitious, and Akos has a lot to do, and yeah, I think he might be regretting that call as we speak.
And the thing is as well, you've got to take into account it's not been the cleanest of races either. There's been a few mistakes by a few people, and Akos on a set of soft tyres versus those that are, especially the likes of Jack, who's on an old set of medium tyres at this point. You're surely going to have to consider potential mistakes of other drivers, which could end up resulting in those soft tyre runners crashing out of the race themselves. So it is going to be a very, very interesting scenario as Venom pits again for the second time under the safety car, now on a fresh set of soft tyres to the end of this race. So he'll join at the back of the queue to make the safety car last until the end of lap 22. So gives us one more lap to just sort of reconvene, think about what's just happened, and make a good assumption of what's going to happen. Yes, the soft tyre runners are going to be faster. They're not going to make easy roads against those medium tyre runners at a track that is just known as the Temple of Speed. The DRS is going to create some issues for those drivers behind.
Yeah, absolutely. Another assumption I can make is this is going to be absolute chaos. You've got so many drivers coming through on softs, and you've got these guys on the medium tyre as well, trying to hang on. But yeah, I think this could be chaos. There's a lot of times where this track can bunch up. We see it at turn 1, so you also have the variant of chicane as well. That can be really, really tough for some of these drivers. As we've got a driver in the pit lane, Visa Chasta. That's an interesting one. I'm not too sure if he's got damage or if he just thought better of it and wants to go into the soft bump in the tyre. But yeah, that's an interesting call. We've got 2 drivers into the pit lane, so yeah, really bizarre stuff from these 2.
Yeah, I think Ollie Loveland just popping in the chat saying Viva Chasta as Chasta drops himself from down excuse me, in the mid-pack down towards the back as he's now in P17. In fact, might be making that P18 as Venom will come across the start-finishing line and across those drivers. And, of course, the safety car zone. And no, he will just hold on, actually, will Chasta. No, he won't. He'll be down to P18 in the end in that particular battle. So Chasta drops himself all the way down to the back here as those drivers have now got to seriously catch up because the safety car will be in at the end of this lap. As Ollie Loveland saying I jinxed him, yeah, but a bold call that one, Ollie, sorry mate. Lap 22 of 27, so this is going to be a 5-lap dash to the end here. So we are now in sprint racing conditions, perfect for those on soft tyres, not so perfect with the track that we're at. So question is how far up is Akos going to get? Will he get a podium? Will he still get the win? Or is he going to struggle making inroads? That is the question.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to make an early prediction that no one asked for, but I think we're going to see Akos around about 2nd or 3rd just before the end of this race. But I think these next few laps now as Stonks are getting ready to go are going to be crucial for Akos. It's important to stay out of trouble because it can be so easily caught up in it. If Akos can avoid the first few laps of chaos, I think he could still be on for a pretty reasonable result.
So 5 laps to go. The drivers now warming their tyres up as much as they can. If you're on the soft tyre, you're in the best position to warm those tyres up as quickly as you possibly can. But it will be Stonks, the championship leader, who will wonder how the hell he managed to get himself into P1 out of all of this, to be honest with you. He is now leading the way and will be leading the pack from the front. Safety car entering the pit lane right now, and that gives all the drivers the freedom to go when they want. And FRA Stonks has gone very early and certainly caught Clone Troop napping. Of course, remember, Clone Troop promoted from Tier 4 last week to Tier 2 as we go green again here in Italy. And as it stands at the moment, Quantum is already making some inroads. Cesar is in trouble. These drivers both have time penalties as well, which is not going to help their case here. The McLaren may go late on the brakes. He certainly goes late on the brakes. This is one hell of a move from the McLaren to go around the outside into turn 1, have the inside of turn 2, have that Cesar. V3 for Quantum.
Yeah, looking for the back VSR. Akos hasn't made any inroads just yet. He had to defend, or ETA Jack, I should say, had to defend from Akos, but Akos just didn't put up much of the attack and then had to sit behind for the time being. So yeah, not a great start for the soft runners as we've not seen too much from the attack, but just looking at Akos at the moment, he's all over the back of Jack coming to the left, which he's going to force that up to defend. Akos, there's just no way around through here though for the Mercedes. He's getting that pushed him through here, coming to left, well, 2 they go. I think this Mercedes could be side-slip a move anytime soon. Yeah,
potentially, but the question is if he's going to be able to make the inroads early on, and if he pushes too hard with his ERS, he's going to end up being a bit of a sitting duck versus anyone else around him. He's going to try and make the move potentially, I think, going into Parabolica as he gets a little bit of a tank slapper, but very well caught from the Mercedes, and he tries to get a better exit out of the sky, but again ETA Jack is able to just ever so slightly hold on. And now here comes Akos. He's going to be late on the brakes here. The space is there, but he chooses not to go for it. Switch back opportunity through Parabolica, but the Alpine's got it covered. And again, we're down to 4 laps to go, and Akos has made absolutely zero progress. It was not a good call to move on to the soft tyres. He may make the inroads now. He is trying to see it, but it's going to be a late call on the brakes if he wants to make the move, as Chasta retires in the pit lane. Late on the brakes from Akos around the outside line, and the Alpine tries to cover it off, but that one isn't going to work, and he's relegated down. But Noctis is also trying to put the pressure on the inside line, heading through Curva Grande, and it's a Grande move potentially because he's going to get squeezed, and the Alpine is trying his hardest to get into the mix, and they're going to be 3 wide going into Delaroche. This is going to be tight going through there, and he cuts the chicane, does Jack. In all of that squeezing, he'll get relegated all the way down the field. Adam Dude promoted to 10th, Rev Caterpillar up to 11th, Jack down to 12.
Yeah, tough stuff there for Jack, but he definitely put his heart on the line there, but just not enough via Akos. So that is exactly what he needs up into P8 now. ESV Bob is his next target, but look at that ERS, 20% to his name. he's used a lot only in the first 2 laps of this new safety car restart.
It was never going to work. I didn't think. I was a bit of a big question mark, to be honest with you, as to the reason why he did it. But here he comes anyway. Akos is going to try and make the move. Bobbers, very late call to just dodge back to the inside line, which catches Akos napping a bit. He has to tuck behind, but he's not going to get DRS because, of course, no DRS is going to be available until the end of this lap. So it's all going to be about raw power. And at the moment, the Mercedes has got none of it because he's down below 5%, 2-3% now. And here comes Noctis, is surely going to be able to be a driver that might actually put some pressure on. Adam Dude also looking for it as well. And he might go for the late breaker, but he chooses not to go for the late breaker going into turn 1. And that move is now closed and done and dusted. 3 laps to go in this race, including this one. And as it stands at the moment, it very much looks as if those who decided to pit on the safety car have made a monumental mistake.
Yes, absolutely. I think Akos might just be raging right now as I thought of him. But Bobber's a big mistake there coming out at the chicane and might just give that opportunity to Mercedes going down the inside of the alignment one. Bobbers, he backs it with that one as we've got a yellow flag in sector 2 as well. That's for the Williams of Piccolo further back. But Akos, he gains another position here up into P7.
2.5 laps to go then in Akos's mind at the moment, but the issue is Akos is just out, going to be just out of the DRS territory at the moment if, of course, Jam Pancakes keeps on the pressure with the likes of Axel. Goes through Ascari very late through Ascari, hoping the tyres will hold, and he absolutely nails it. And Akos might have just bought himself a little bit of time here as he now heads down the straight, but of course he's going to be under a lot of pressure. Noctis putting a pressure on Bobberts here. Is he going to be late on the brakes here, going around the outside? But Noctis is going to have to go, but he's got the grip. No, he doesn't. He's off of the track, and he has to tuck in again behind Bobberts. Bobberts has a time penalty, remember, as well. So while this is all happening, he's losing time. He's going to lose positions come the end here. Here they go then, down the straight once again. It's the penultimate lap of this race as Levi also retires in the pit lane. As they now head down the straight, they're both equally late on the brakes, but the McLaren very nicely holds on to the position. And even though the soft tyre runners arguably are the faster tyre runner, Bobberts is holding on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just up front as well. Clone Troop up into the lead of this race. Who would have seen that one coming a few laps ago? But he got the move on. Stonks didn't put up too much of a defence, but Stonks now with 2 laps to go. He's still definitely all to play for the lead of this race.
It's all about that attack going into turn 1. Is Clone Troop going to be able to pull enough of a gap that Stonks is going to be in trouble going through into turn 1? If this happens, this is going to be one hell of a debut race for Clone Troop to win this Grand Prix, as Akos gets a 3-second time penalty for his troubles as well, which is going to see him fall well down the field from the likes of Noctis and even Rev Caterpillar and potentially Adam Dude as well in this situation. Not a good Ascari from Clone Troop, and that is now going to put a lot of pressure on him here. And look at the ERS that Stonks has got available as he keeps the pressure on. It looks very much as if Clone Troop is not going to hold on here as he wiggles down the straight here. Spinella with a 3-second time penalty for his troubles as they go through Parabolica. This is the final lap of this race, and early indications suggesting the championship leader surely has got this one covered here as they go down the straight. We've got a little bit of lag on the streets. Hopefully that's not going to affect your viewing, well, because we should see what is going to be a very clear move as Noctis has crashed out of this race. He's crashed at Parabolica. Stonks then makes the move going into turn 1, but only just. And you have to say Clone Troop is still going to be hot on his heels.
Yeah, I'm surprised Clone Troop didn't put up a defence here. It was a pretty simple move there for the Aston Martin, but maybe he's thinking the long game for as much as there's only a lap left. We've still got one more DRS zone going into Ascari. Maybe that's what he's planning, just looking Jam Pancakes. What a great race he's had as well. He's just looking on the back of ETA actually. He could be on for, I think it could be P4 if he add up those penalties. So great race from him as well from the back of the grid, but still half a lap to go and still a lot of positions to be decided.
Oh, I did say, looking back on it now, it was not the call to go into the pit lane under the safety car. I was questioning it, and I don't like saying I told you so, but I told you so. And now the medium tyre runners are flying high here. Now Stonks is looking like out of nowhere the championship leader is going to be winning this Grand Prix, and I tell you, whatever happens, it's been a monumental effort from Clone Troop here to get P2 as it stands here. But this is all very much about what happens through Parabolica. Mistakes can still happen as they now head through that final corner. We've still got a battle happening at the moment for P4, 5, and 6, and 7 at the moment as they now head through Parabolica. The championship leader will want to know how the hell he managed to get into this position. He has won the Italian Grand Prix, followed by Clone Trooper Cesar and Quantum of Time penalties. Axel for ET8 on their debut tonight gets a podium as well. Jam Pancakes will be happy for P4 after getting disqualified from qualifying. Adam Dude gets 6 as well. Akos will be so disappointed with P7 after leading the majority of this race.
Wow, what a race that was. The safety car was just really what we needed. And as you said, You called it. The soft or not the way to go. Staying out was what happened, a bit like what we seen last night in Tier 1. Staying out worked again tonight in Tier 2, and they've been rewarded. The guys that maybe just a bit bolder and thought these medium tyres are good enough, they have been rewarded. It's a great win at the top. You've got Jam Pancakes as well from the back, a great drive from him. You've got Clone Trip as well on his debut coming home in P2, and overall a great race here in Monza.
Oh, it's always a great race, isn't it, Monza? I absolutely love the circuit as well. I'll hopefully visit it at some point as well. Well, in the meantime, though, let's enjoy the party atmosphere that brings in the Monza circuit. Of course, on the podium, when it's going to be a big celebration for the championship leader, who will want to know how he managed to get this top step after what has been a really intense race himself. He manages to take victory and the top step and the biggest trophy on that standing. Congratulations to him and Aston Martin, and great performance as well from FRA in general. Aston Martin had an absolute beauty of a race in the end. Nonetheless, though, big shout out to Clone Troop on his debut tonight, promoted from Tier 4 straight up to Tier 2 and managing to snag himself a podium position, second place and a runner-up in that particular race. I'll be looking forward to speaking to those drivers very shortly indeed. So let's have a very quick look at the very provisional results of this race. In the end, FRA Stonks takes the victory tonight, just over a second in front of Clone Troop, with Axel on ET8's debut tonight. Also another debutant on the podium in ET8, third place for him. Jam Pancakes from disqualification to fourth place. What a performance from the Alfa Romeo, with Cesar in fifth place to make Aston Martin's race very happy indeed. Adam Dood in the end in sixth place, with Akos in a very disappointing seventh place after a bit of a mix-up. Strategy just did not work for him, with Rev Caterpillar ending his race in eighth place, and a good bounce back actually, with Jack in ninth and Typical rounding out the top 10. The bottom drivers, Quantum finishing in 11th with Boberts in 12th, Venom in the end after a very shocking circumstance with Kai earlier on in this race, finishes in 13th, with Chelsea in 14th, Piccolo in 15th, and Spinella in 16th, with Noctis down in 17th, and of course Levi in 18th place, all classified despite their DNF. Chasta finishes in 19th, with Kai also out of the race. That is it for the race, but not it as regards of what we're going to be talking to with the drivers in here as well. Thank you very much to all of the drivers who are tuning in to this the question and answer session. And what a great race it has actually been from you guys tonight. We'll start off with the winner of that race in the end, the championship leader, FRA Stonks. Not the best qualifying, but in the situation that landed in front of you, you take the victory tonight. Was that a bit of a shock to you?
No, not really, to be honest. I don't want to sound cocky, but I knew I had the pace to win. It's just I wasn't falling. And I just had to keep it clean going into incidents, and I did exactly that. I think that's what got me. And of course, the safety car. But
Monza tonight. You know, looking on this one, of course, you're going to be extending your lead in the championship by quite some way, because your other drivers that were battling with you at the moment have had relatively poor races. In that scenario, you're obviously eyeing up the title. Do you see yourself Tier 1 next season?
well, I actually can't race Mondays, so unfortunately not. Maybe here and there, when I'm available.
Nice to see you Tier 1. Well done. Really, really good performance in yourself. Thank yourself. How did you feel out there in comparison to Tier 4?
Well, I don't know. It's alright, you know. I can't lie about it. But yeah, it felt alright.
Nonetheless, managing to snag yourself a podium. So obviously you're showing immediately out of the blocks. You've managed to snag yourself a position within the tier that suggests that you're going to be challenging for those victories. P2 immediately out of the blocks. The only way is up. P1. Is there any tracks remaining on the grid, remaining in this calendar, that you feel confident at for Tier 2?
Most of them, to be fair. I mean, tonight, towards the end, I could do 40 back, just thought I'd say. But yeah, nah, it'd be interesting, because I'm not racing into like these guys. Yeah, it'd be interesting to be fast and not. But yeah, probably get a win.
E3. It's Axel. ET8's debut, penalties were applied. How did you feel out there?
Yeah, pretty good race. I mean, I get truck my quali. I started like P14, I think, and I was not far away from my PB because I'm really bad on quali this year, so not that bad. And I just like stick behind everyone, not making mistakes. A pretty good pace on this track, so pretty happy with the result. And yeah, second time of the year I don't get killed lap 1, and first time P4, this time P3, so maybe it's a coincidence, but I'm happy with it. And yeah, pretty good result. Happy with podium.
Well, it was really good, really good performance from yourself in the end, and managing to snag that podium position. Of course, you're going to be looking forward with ET8, of course, as I said, after their acquisition of Velox. So you're looking forward now with ET8. You know, the question more aimed at the team. You know, what are the goals now Velox has been absorbed? What are you guys expecting with ET8?
So at the moment, we're really happy to be able to race in TPS and WOR and Big 2Z. So now the goal for the remaining race of the season is just to get the machine, how do you say it, like just to launch the machine and just to be able to work as a team, to be ready and at 100% for next season. And now just to manage to finish races, score points, and we will see next season. But we are pretty confident, and we're sure we're gonna be able to perform well.
Well, looking forward to seeing what ET8 have got ahead of us as well. Thank you, and a very good congratulations as well for that performance at the Italian Grand Prix. And that is it. We are now moving on from the Italian Grand Prix as we visit the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya in Spain, I believe, which is going to be a very, very interesting race indeed. So feel free to tune in across all of the WOR tiers, and of course keep an eye out on our Twitter feed for all of the latest information coming from the WOR world. But we move on to Spain next week. Hopefully you can tune in for that one. I certainly will be. Take care in the meantime, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye for now.